Now, these two dates, I want to confirm with you if this is true or not. So January 11th, 2008, TNA announced on its website, you've been released from your contract. January 29th, 2008, it's announced that you are now signed to the WWE. How did those two deals end and get signed so quickly? Usually people have like a 90-day compete clause or something like that. How does this end up coming to be? And also, were you unhappy with TNA or was TNA unhappy with you?
Wow. So many factors went into this. I kind of saw the direction I was taking. We had the 2007 was just a really great ride. Um, with the turn and the chase and Storm and I and the Texas Death Match, and then I went on to King of the Mountain, and then with Christian, and then it just kind of started going downhill, and there just wasn't a whole lot of thought process. And I remember even Vince Russo was in, I was pulling him aside, and hey, what are we doing? Where are we going? And I just wasn't getting any good answers. I mean, there just wasn't a whole lot. It was one of those. I almost, not that this was said to me, but I almost feel like it was kind of like, yeah, creative has nothing for you right now, that kind of thing.
Mhm.
And I'm thinking, all I kept thinking is I'm a fresh face in a way. I've been here since the beginning, but I'm a fresh face right now. I'm a new baby face and coming out of this great program with Storm. I mean, I could be so fresh for the title picture or anything like that. I just felt like there were so many things, so many directions we could have gone, and yeah, it wasn't happening. So uh, yeah, I was a little down about it, and um, yeah, I mean, I can't really remember my entire thought process, but yeah, my contract was coming up. Those dates sound sound correct. My contract was coming up, which that's kind of where the 90-day no compete comes in. I think if you quit or they let you go or something like that, that's when that falls into place. But if your contract is over, then you don't have that. So mine was actually ending, and uh, they did want to re-sign me. They did, say that they wanted to keep me, but when the negotiations started happening, the very first red flag to me was they wanted to cut my pay. And considering all the everything we've talked about,
Mhm.
just where I was in the company at that point, I was like, what? I mean, how is this even? Why would you even? I mean, it was just insulting that they would even say that. I mean, if anything, let's at least keep it where it was. But you do any kind of contract, or, re up a contract, you're doing some negotiation, so there's going to be some talk there. But I mean, I just took it as a real insult for them to say that, and um, so that had a lot to do with it. And I think there was some restructuring of the contract. I'm not all sure the details, but a lot of it was, it's funny. I don't know how much you listen to Jr., but he always talks about cash and creative. That's where always the problems lie when with talent. And it's not that I was unhappy with the cash, because I felt like I was making. I mean, I wasn't rich, but I yes, it's the money is very important, but I was making a very good living being able to wrestle, and so I was happy with that. So it's not like I was demanding any more money or anything like that. It was just the fact that their first offer was a cut and pay, and I didn't understand that. And then when you add that into there's no direction for you right now, it just kind of showed me where I sat with them, and it just that that kind of looked at me like, hey, I've been loyal here to you for all this time. I just wanted to feel wanted is all I really wanted. I wanted, just give me a reason to stay. That's all you need. It's not that I want to leave, because I was TNA. I was bleeding TNA. But I did mention before, like during any time contracts are up and you resign, that maybe there's some feeling out process. Just like I said before, we sent feelers out. I did the same thing. And there was talk whether singles or I was even talking about Storm, and Storm decided to make his decision, and he did what he thought was best, and he re-signed on his own. This was the first time we didn't sign together, so he re-signed on his own. And that's he had to make that choice for him and his family, and I was just kind of weighing my options. And I was I was in my uh, I think I was 35 or something around that age. I can't remember exactly, but I was thinking to myself, if I wait and the next time this comes around, I'm going to be approaching 40. And
Mhm.
so I just thought, if I'm going to do something, now might be the time that I have to do it, and just kind of gamble on myself, just bet on myself. And the interest was there. I remember, sending out there, is there interest? And the answer I got from a certain individual was very interested. And so the talk started going, and whether the money and just that kind of thing. And it's not like I can go in there demanding anything. I mean, I was, as far as I was concerned, I'm the new guy in there, so that they don't really care what you did before, and what you did in TNA, and I made sure I didn't. TNA never came out of my mouth, but that's really all that happened there. My contract was coming up, and that's kind of what I was getting. And so I just thought, if they're not feeling enough about me to reach out and make me want to stay, then I guess I just have to take my chances. And at that point in my life, I mean, I was not married. I have no kids. I mean, it was like I was devoted to the business. I could travel as much as I want. I mean, so I was ready to pull full force into this. So that's really a lot of. I mean, there was a lot of other things that went into it, but in the big picture, that's kind of what it was. I just decided that I had to give this a try and see what would happen. So yeah, as soon as the contract was over, boom, I had my agent, and we were contract negotiations were going. The contract was mailed to me and signed and done deal in a matter of a couple weeks. So yeah, it was that part was quick.
Wow, there's a lot to unpack there because a couple questions is couple questions from that is, were you making more money when you signed with the WWE or TNA? And the other question is, do you feel like your loyalty that you believed was both sides of the loyalty to TNA, it ended up being only your side, and TNA was looking at you as just like an object, like a person just to work for us, not as a family run business that it once was?
I can't put words in. I mean, I can't get into the what was going on in their minds, but just to pick three individuals that I was dealing with. There's Vince Russo, there's Jeff Jarrett, there's Dixie Carter, and I just wasn't getting the feeling from them that it was a big deal.
Okay.
And I'm not saying you got to make me a big deal, but people there's people that had shuffled off. I mean, there was at that point we had a pretty good core of originals, and I was part of that. And so I think they like the idea of having that kind of group where we have our originals here and our homegrown talent and that. But it just I don't know. I guess I'm trying to put it into words, but yeah, I just didn't get that feeling from any of them that there was a whole lot of. I'm not going to say interest because they were definitely interested in
Mhm.
keeping me, but they just weren't willing to like put any effort into it. I guess. A lot of the negotiations were like I mentioned those three that I was talking to, but Terry Taylor was really the talent relations. So a lot of the talk was with him, and I did mention I had an agent, so a lot of that was being covered by that by my agent. But um, yeah, just I mean, the cut and pay thing really got me. But I felt like hey, that's sometimes that's just the beginning of negotiations. They always want you always want to go low. So it wasn't that yes, it was insulting, but I felt like, okay, let's move from here. And it wasn't going anywhere. They just weren't. That's what they were offering, and um, it didn't seem to go anywhere. So yeah, that's why the interest was there. I think what you originally asked me though. Um,
But I was comparing the money of TNA versus compared to when you first
oh
signed to the WWE. Was it equal or more?
yeah, the interesting part about that, I mean, nothing crazy here. It was actually equal. I was making very good money with TNA, and I was happy with that. and what WWE was offering me was basically about the same that I was making. So, to go to WWE, I mean, of course, they always talk about the potential, and it's an opportunity kind of thing. And I was 100% on board with that. That just give me the
Mhm.
opportunity, and I'll take it, and maybe each year I'll increase. So again, it would just I wasn't a big money guy kind of thing to where that was uh, such a back and forth thing. What they were offering, I was okay with, and I just felt like hey, I can work on that and make more as we go. And plus, I think that, I mean, I don't remember the entire structure of the contract, but it's like that's your, I think they call it the downside guarantee
Okay.
kind of thing. And so yeah, the more you work, you would at least that's how it was then. The more you work, the more you would get paid. Um, so I was okay with that. But to answer your question though, yeah, it was basically the same. So
Okay.
I wasn't. Now it turned out to be a lot different because once I got to WWE, I mean, the travel was just a lot different. I go from riding with a group of people and you're splitting a lot of expenses to over here. I'm renting a car by myself. I'm staying in a hotel by myself. It's just the expenses turned out to be a lot more, and that had a little bit of an effect. But that's more detail than you really care to know. But no, as far as I was happy with what I was going to start with, and I was happy with what I was making a TNA. The fact that they were trying to cut that and offer me less was that created a problem.
Yeah, I imagine because again, I brought up the loyalty for TNA where we wouldn't be where we are if it wasn't for you. But obviously, they don't look at you as a like management or executive. They just look at you as a body that put in the work. And now apparently they want to cut your pay. I don't know, understand why would they ever want to do that, but according they did. So when you come to the
There's
WWE
always
though, oh, what?
I'm sorry, I was just going to add that there's sometimes when you look back, there's always things you maybe wish you would have done different. I I wish I would have maybe forced some more communication. I feel like that would have helped a lot
Hmm,
if I would have gone to like the small talk with Jeff and Dixie, and even Vince sometimes. But it was more short. If I would have really pushed to say, I want to work this out. Can we please talk? I never did that. Maybe if I had, there'd have been more communication going on, and communication is always the key. And sometimes you have to learn the hard way about that. So I feel like if there'd have been more communication on both of our parts, I mean, I wish they could have come to me and done this, or I wish I would have gone to them and said, "Can we please talk?" And and yeah, I'm one of the originals. I've been here this long, so please give me the time to do this. I think maybe something could have been worked out, but that's not what happened. So it went a different direction. But yeah, I think there could have been more effort made to fix it.
yeah. Again, I appreciate all your work. When you came to the WWE though, who do you have a meeting with first? Is it a Vince McMahon meeting? Is it Bruce Pritchard? And are you discussing your name because everyone knew you as Chris Harris? They don't give you that name when you come in. So it's like a blank slate to people who don't know you. If I see your name on a piece of paper, I don't know who that is. If I see Chris Harris, I know who that is. So what were the discussions and who did you have the first meeting about changing your name?
Well, most of my discussions were with John Laurinaitis.
Okay.
There was no meeting with Vince McMahon, and yeah, I didn't see Bruce until my first day. I don't know. Maybe I'm just going by the history and when they sign talent, and I guess I have to kind of remember that it had gotten so big and corporate that it's not like every piece of talent is going to have a meeting with Vince McMahon. So, I understood that, but yeah, it just I had a real good feeling that it was just, I was just another name that was signed. And, they sent me down to, at that time, it was way before NXT, developmental and FC Florida Championship Wrestling, and which was in Tampa. Um, so yeah, I just felt like it was another name coming in, another name as in generic, just coming in, and it did seem different at first. When I was with Johnny, I felt like he was making a big deal about me being there, and when I
Mm,
did go to to FCW. Tom Pritchard was down there, Steve Kern, and Tom kind of made it like it was a big deal that I was there. And I don't know. I look back at it now and I'm thinking, that maybe that's just the way the system works. They make you feel like a big deal at first, but then quickly you just then they start breaking you down. And but most of my talks were with Johnny. And then once I was at TV, and that's when we started. I think I had a dark match one time, and um, then I started spending majority of the weeks in Florida, the developmental system, which, I mean, there's certainly a something you have to go through to learn the style of WWE. I've always heard that, you have to learn their style, and I could sit here today and say I don't know what that is because I never learned it. I wasn't there long enough, so. But whatever that was, I was willing to go down there, and but the thing is, a lot of that was just it was training to get in I don't know, it's hard to explain. Like, I didn't go down there especially at 35, 36 years old and start doing 1,000 bumps a day. I
Right.
wanted to I was ready to wrestle. I'd been in the business 15 years and had my experience with TNA and TV. And so let's, if it's developmental, let's develop me for what you have ready for me. And it was more of I was just down there beating my body up, and that's I at that point I needed to start counting my bumps. I didn't know how many I was going to have left, and could potentially have the best years right in front of me. So, but then once something was said about doing the TV, I think my first match was with Armando, and we did the vignettes in the back. That was actually the first time I met Bruce, and he just seemed so not interested. And then we kind of saw the result of that. It was just a train wreck with those promos. Um, but bottom line is that they didn't have anything ready for me. They had no preparation. They didn't know what they wanted to do. And you asked about the name. I mean, to be honest with you, I know the name. The name gets shot at a lot, and
Hmm.
that's okay because I feel like that's coming from my loyal Wildcat Chris Harris fans. But I kind of knew. I mean, if you know the business at all, coming from TNA, it just wasn't a normal thing for you to come into there and have your name.
Right.
So I assumed going into WWE that there was no Wildcat Chris Harris coming with me. So I assumed going in that there was going to be a name change. Now you can pick, well, this name is good, this name is bad. Once it came down to Braden Walker, it was like the day of. I mean, that's how little preparation there was with this. It was the day of, and we were kind of going back and forth with whoever. I don't know if it was. I don't think it was creative, but whoever comes up with the names. And I remember getting a few different opinions. I remember I talked to Mick Foley, and I think I talked to Taz. Just trying to decide on something, and that's where we went with it. So I did have input in it. I won't say they just kind of threw this at me. Um, I almost wish they. Well, I don't know. They did. So I did have a little input in that. So we came up with Braden Walker. But the thing is, I didn't mind that. Like, I felt like, put me out there, give me the opportunity. I don't care what you name me. I'm going to make something work. So I just had that attitude and that confidence where I was like, that the name isn't going to stop me. That one thing is not going to stop this from working because I believed in my abilities. So, but when you add in all the other things, then it starts to, like, the name, the look, my music, the appearance. Just, I mean, when you start adding all the no story, that's probably top of the list. I mean, they were taking guys and just throwing them out on TV and not giving the people a reason to even care. I mean, why? Because you do have to realize. I mean, it's a fact. WWE has so much of a wider audience than TNA had. So I'm new to a lot of these people. So when you just put some generic guy out there, what's to like about him?
Hmm.
They gave the people no reason to care whatsoever. So and then when you add all that on top of it, it was just generic, generic, generic. Just name and I don't even remember what the music was, but I remember it was awful. And then, my appearance, we were changing my appearance up a little bit, and I went with the singlet, which at the time, I think the first time out it was just completely black, so you can't get any more generic than that. But that was just because nothing had be everything that I had that I could have worn said Wildcat on it.
Ah,
So it wasn't like I could go out there in my other outfits. I kind of went into it. It wasn't like I was going to make something because I didn't know what WWE had in mind. So everything I had Wildcat on it. So it was thrown together that day, a basic black singlet. And when you're making a first impression, man, I mean, that's why people don't forget that it's been 15, 17 years, and people don't forget that. So my first impression was the shits. And so it was just but I felt like it was important for me to say that, at the time it didn't matter what they were going to throw at me. I just felt like I could get something done. And
hmm
even the promos, the promo has been talked about a lot, even in the last few years, in my first promo there. But it was, I there I don't know if Bruce had never seen any of my promos or what the case was, but I could obviously cut a promo. And then when we got back there, they'd give me one line and I would do it, and then they would change it up. Let's do it again. Let's do it again. We just did so many takes, and they just kept changing the lines over and over again to where it was driving me crazy. It was like, what? I mean, just tell me what you want, and I'll make it work somehow. And it's just crazy to think of what we wound up settling on is knock your brains out. I mean, good lord, could it get any worse than that? So it was just yeah, it was just it just didn't come across well. And I mean, it's
I
just
don't mean to laugh
yeah. And
hysterically,
Bruce,
but that is pretty
it's
good.
okay, man. Yeah, I mean, I'm Braden Walker. I'm going to knock your brains out. And I'm thinking, this is $1 billion company with a creative team, and that's what you come up with.
Mm,
And Bruce Pritchard, who I do have respect for everything he has done, but you know, going well, the opinions that I hear out of him now about that promo, it's like he puts it 100% on me, like I didn't know how to cut a promo.
right.
And anybody that's watched my work knows that's not true. So he just didn't. He just seemed so not interested in anything that was going on. And so yeah, just it was all these variables that worked into it that just made it a failed experiment. But I felt like they didn't have any plan or any ideas or anything. And I did, I didn't want to overstep my bounds there, but I did throw out some different ideas. I had a meeting with the creative team, and like I said, Johnny was my contact, so I was talking to him about some things, and everything that was talked about, it may have sounded like a great idea at the time, and then by the next week, no, we're not going to do that. And okay, and so it was a very frustrating time, man. I mean, it wore on me, and I know you didn't even get this far. You didn't even ask about this, but yeah, just the whole period in general was just wearing on me and affected me personally. And I felt like my career was going down the toilet. So it was just yeah, bad experience.
So obviously, I've talked to many individuals about these types of things where it's like you have a vision of who you are, and someone else has a vision of who you are, and you're probably never going to break them for thinking the way they think about you. And so when you eventually do leave the WWE, how are you doing emotionally, mentally? Because obviously, when someone tells you at this big company that clearly he doesn't see something in you, but yet everyone else sees something in you, but he's the one kind of making decisions. How does that affect you emotionally and mentally?
It tore me up. I mean, I was about to head into probably the darkest days of my life. I know there's been many others before me, but when kind of when you're out of that wrestling bubble and you're trying to figure yourself out, I mean, it's very hard. When you've been doing it for so long, and I don't think I was necessarily ready for anything. I mean, I needed to really refocus and get myself better. But once I did reach out with TNA, I it come to find out that they were still pissed off about me leaving. So
Mm,
there wasn't any opportunity on the table right there. And all I wanted to do, I mean, all I wanted to do was I just kept telling myself, I want to go home. I want to go home. And then my home was TNA. I wanted to go back there. And but yeah, they just which is funny because just how many people switch companies so many times over that we know about in wrestling. It's just it's funny when and Jeff Jarrett was still in charge, and I almost wanted to be looking at Jeff saying, Jeff, are you kidding me? You of all people have switched so many times, so yeah, that there was an interest there, so I knew that wasn't it. So I thought maybe I have to do the indies or something like that. But it just really took. You asked about just my emotional state. It just really took a toll on me, man. I was embarrassed. I was defeated. I felt like it was a failure. I felt like I was a failure. Whereas all the times in my careers, anytime I took a chance on myself and I was reaching for that next goal, I was doing the right thing and it was
mhm,
paying off and it kept going like that. And this was probably the one of the first times where I took a chance on myself and just completely just a completely failed experiment.